let's look at the highlights from Trump's 5-day tour of Malaysia, Japan, and South Korea. Essentially, it's a trip that produced major new deals and made real progress in security, economic cooperation, and key supply chain partnership. So let's talk about his stop number one, Malaysia. One of the biggest moments of the visit was the signing of the peace agreement between Cambodia and Thailand. And it's especially around there's a temple called Priya Vihir. I hope I'm pronouncing right. It's a flashpoint that had caused repeated clashes for years between the two countries. Now, Beijing has deep ties with both countries, with both Cambodia and Thailand, but couldn't stop their fighting. And the fighting flared up again in July. So Trump intervened and broke the deadlock. So Cambodia's prime minister even sent a letter to the Nobel Peace Committee, or the Nobel Committee, nominating Trump for the Peace Prize. So the message was clear. America's influence in Southeast Asia still far outweighs China's. And this gave Washington a powerful opening to rebuild trust in the region. Now, traditionally, many Asian nations have long tried to walk a tightrope between Washington and Beijing. They fear and distrust China, yet depend on it economically. Most of them follow what's being called the dual dependence model, relying on China for trade and the U.S. for security. That means American taxpayers effectively foot the bill for keeping the region safe, so these countries can do business with China. This is something that Trump has often called unfair. So his reciprocal tariff policy changed that dynamic. It reminded Southeast Asia that the U.S. market is essential, not just for their security, but for their economic survival. And strategically, just 10 months into his second term, Trump has already gained an upper hand against Beijing in Southeast Asia, because that's the backyard of China. The Trump administration has signed reciprocal trade deals with Cambodia and expanded cooperation on defense and the fight against transnational crimes, which are backed by Beijing. I mean, the CCP is the big boss ultimately behind these transnational crimes that are based in places like Cambodia and Myanmar along the Belt and Road routes. And then of the 10 Asian nations, Malaysia has traditionally been the friendliest toward Beijing. China has been Malaysia's largest trading partner for years. And just this past April, China and Malaysia even issued a joint statement to build a high-level strategic community with a shared future, whatever. I think that's Xi Jinping's community of common destiny. Some analysts in Singapore described Malaysia under the current PM as showing a strong tilt toward China, while maintaining cautious cooperation with the U.S. But I think Trump's visit might have changed that, or the wind might have shifted, or start to shift. So on the economic front, the United States and Malaysia signed a reciprocal trade agreement, and Malaysia agreed to buy large volumes of U.S. energy, minerals, semiconductors, and high-tech products. Both sides also deepened cooperation on critical minerals, the raw materials essential for high-tech and green energy industries. So working with Malaysia helps Washington reduce reliance on China and build a more resilient global supply chain. Yeah, so Trump was welcomed warmly in Kuala Lumpur, and the video of him dancing with Malaysian performers on the tarmac went viral online. At the same time, Thailand also pledged to expand defense cooperation and work with Washington. Thailand is one of America's oldest allies in the region. The U.S. also announced new trade talk frameworks with Thailand and Vietnam. So put all together, these steps show a clear U.S. strategy: promote prosperity, ensure security, and strengthen partnerships across Southeast Asia. What he accomplished in Malaysia. Now, Japan, there's a lot of press coverage on that. So it's called a golden era for the alliance. There were two major agreements that came out of his meetings in Japan. First was the U.S.-Japan Critical Minerals Cooperation Framework. Japan, a high-tech powerhouse, depends on rare earth, while the United States wants to reduce reliance on foreign supplies, on Chinese supplies. So the two countries share the same mission. So by teaming up, the two countries can develop new sources, boost recycling. Actually, Japan had the cutting edge technology in rare earth refining. So this will be a substantial agreement on rare earth collaboration. And second one is the Golden Era Alliance Agreement. This goes far beyond defense. It covers economics, technology, and global governance. There's no question that Trump's visit to Japan reinforced the alliance as the cornerstone of America's Indo-Pacific strategy. There's no question of that. Now, what I want to talk about is his trip to South Korea, because I was most fascinated with his trip to South Korea. I've been talking about, I should say, power struggles between these two men. Former South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol and the current president Lee Jae-myung. Well, Yoon Suk-yeol is perceived as pro-West and conservative, and the current president Lee Jae-myung is seen as very pro-Beijing. His fiercest critics are actually MAGA supporters in Korea. They wave MAGA flags and shout CCP out at their rallies to oppose Lee Jae-myung, and they call him China Lee. So it was fascinating to watch how President Lee interacted with President Trump. On October 29th, the two met for their second summit since Trump's return to the White House. Well, the first meeting was in Washington, D.C. And one of the most talked about moments came when Lee presented his gifts. Right? The first one was a medal, was South Korea's highest honor, the Grand Order of, it's called Maganghwa. It's a flower. It's actually it's South Korea's national flower. It's actually the Rose of Sharon. Normally, this medal is given to the South Korean president, the first lady, or friendly heads of state. And the Republic of China's president, Chiang Kai-shek, received it in 1966. And Trump is now the first American president ever to receive it. Lee also gave Trump a replica of the Golden Crown from Heavenly Horse tomb. The original crown, made of over 1 kilo of gold, is one of Korea's most famous artifacts. Trump's version was gold-plated. It's a symbolic gift. Some observers saw it as a subtle jab, a nod to Trump's critics who say that he wants to be king. Just weeks earlier, anti-Trump protests broke out across the U.S., and they had used the slogan, "No King," right? Remember the "No King" protest against Trump? So the crown gift from President Lee felt like part compliment, part ridicule, depending on how you look at it. Still, their meetings produced major results. I'm sure the gift was received positively by President Trump. The two leaders signed a new U.S.-Korea trade agreement, cutting reciprocal tariffs from 25% to 15%. And this is a big deal because for years, trade tensions over cars and steel strained the relationship. Now, Korean exports to the U.S. will be cheaper and more competitive. And American goods will have easier access to the Korean market. This is a real win-win. And they finalized details of $350 billion investment packages, including aviation purchases, defense and energy cooperation, and rare earth supply chain collaboration. Now, Trump also made an important pledge on semiconductor tariffs, promising that South Korea's chip exports will not face higher duties than Taiwan's. Given that Taiwan and South Korea dominate the global chip industry, this promise ensures fair competition between the two. So that's substantial. And the most strategic and controversial outcome was Trump's approval for South Korea to build nuclear-powered submarines, replacing its current diesel fleet. And that's historic because for decades, Washington opposed Seoul's nuclear submarine ambitions. And it shared such technology with only Britain and Australia. So Trump announced that the sub would be built in the United States at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard, now owned by Korea's Hanwha Group, one of South Korea's largest shipbuilders. And so this Hanwha Group plans to invest $150 billion to revive American shipbuilding under the slogan, Make American Shipbuilding Great Again, or MASCA. This move hit several goals at once, deterring North Korea, pressuring China, and tighten the U.S.-Korea alliance. So even though Xi Jinping was the top foreign guest at APEC, his power and that of his regime is clearly fading. It's been barely 10 months since Trump returned to the White House, yet the balance of power in the Indo-Pacific is already heavily tilting toward the United States. And I think that shift is giving the CCP some serious headaches.